Dyer's ban.
Hello and welcome to the Battle of Central Europe Season 3 here on HeflaTV Hitbox 2. I'm Grandis V, and this is going to be a best of two series between the Coalition of Cool Killers, or CCK, and HellRaisers. Unfortunately, I don't have a co-caster for this game, so I'm going to be taking this game at the very least solo. Hopefully later on in the day, I'll have somebody else to come and help me out. Also, this is very short notice. I wasn't supposed to be casting on HeflaTV Hitbox 2, but unfortunately Coucher is having some technical issues, so he couldn't host a stream himself. So I think he's going to be overcasting on Hitbox 1 with Mike Laura. So if you're interested, I believe that's M5 Int versus...
Radiant's pick.
Oh dear, I can't remember who they're actually playing. So let me go ahead and check that for a second. That'll be momentarily. Now it's going to be... My goodness, I actually can't click on anything. It's going to be Virtus Pro Polar versus M5 Int. Alright, there you go. So if you're interested in either of those teams, that's where you can check them out over at HeflaTV HB1. As for here, this is going to be a pretty good series. I haven't actually seen CCK play together. Some of the names are familiar, if not individually, as stand-ins in the scene. So, I don't know, I hope that they're well-equipped for fighting up against HellRaisers. All of these players are fairly well-known names and work well together, so I'm not sure. I'd say that CCK are the underdogs coming into this. As far as the first bans coming out from either side, DP Razor are going to be banned out by CCK, and Brewmaster IO taken out by HellRaisers. A lot of IO hate we've been seeing in this tournament in particular. But yeah, as we have a little bit of a slow start to this draft, I'm just going to make sure that all of the technical stuff behind the scenes is working, making sure that we're all on the tickering sites and that the stream's going live. As I said, I didn't have time to prep any of this beforehand, so looks like we are good to go on most of these websites. If you are interested in betting on these games, you can bet items on Gosu Gamers if that floats your boat. However, not for this game. If for the Virtus Pro Polar game, you can bet items. There just wasn't enough people that were betting on this game in order to make that interesting for them. But if you do want to, that's one place to do it. Also, Dota 2 Best YOLO, I believe, is running some bets on their website. As far as the first pick this game, we're going to see HellRaisers snag up the Ogre Magi, one of those top-tier picks that, for the longest time, hasn't seen a lot of play, but it's always interesting to watch an Ogre Magi. Just getting those random multicasts every once in a while can change up the game pretty significantly, and then most teams do love to have Bloodlust on their side. That extra movement attack speed makes some carries, some more than others, incredibly scary. The first two that come to mind are Medusa and Phantom Assassin. That extra attack speed can be pretty ridiculous. As far as CCK, they start things off with a Witch Doctor Puck. A very interesting opener coming out from them, one that we don't usually see, although both very solid heroes in their own right, offering a nice mix of magical and physical damage and control. They generally aren't seen in these first two slots. I was half expecting a Void pick coming out from Coalition of Cool Killers after the Witch Doctor appeared on the screen, but it seems that they're going to put their faith in a different AoE ultimate in the Dream Coil. It combos decently well to Death Ward, and it's a nice two hero staff together, but then again, I'm not sure if it's going to be strong enough up against HellRaisers. It's going to depend decently on individual play here, and you can't really fault them for having a plan and executing it. It's just something different that a lot of teams don't do. I think it's, I don't know, it's very stable, is the best way to put it for Coalition of Cool Killers. They have heroes that hardly are ever bad. It's nice to have that Paralyzing Cask, the Voodoo Restoration, some nice sustain, and Lockdown coming up from the Witch Doctor, and Puck is also going to offer a similar amount of control. In fact, a little bit more, and then a lot of magic nuke damage. You can lane Puck pretty much anywhere you want. This could be offlane. As for HellRaisers, they're going to pick up their secondary support, and these two together are definitely very explosive when it comes to that magical damage, and that's not sarcastic or in any way
Dyer's ban.
a metaphor. They actually do explode heroes with the Ancient Seal, as well as the Fire Blast and Mystic Flare. You can take out heroes, especially ones that have fairly low HP pools, and the Witch Doctor and Puck very quickly, and Puck is fairly allergic to those silences coming out from the Skywrath Mage, and maybe this is even a mid-Skywrath Mage. HellRaisers have that flexibility in order to put these heroes into different roles, but as of now, I think it's safe to assume that Ogre Magi and Skywrath Mage are going to be your supporting duo. Ogre Magi getting more farm. After Arcane Boots, Skywrath Mage really doesn't need anything more than that. Looks like I'm actually using the wrong overlay.
5 seconds.
But you know, that doesn't actually matter much. It still has all of the information up in the top. We're all good.
Reserve time.
Yeah, let's see. I don't know, hopefully the servers good. Luxembourg has had some issues as of late, getting those servers all up and running and making sure that there's no lag involved. So hopefully everything's going to continue fine throughout the day. But there is that chance that we'll have to have a remake, so hopefully that's not the case. Thanks for sticking with us here on HeflaTV. Usually I'd have somebody else to talk to, so hopefully it's not too terrible to listen to my voice, at least for the first hour or two of this cast. We're going to see Lycanthrope, Legion Commander, banned out by Coalition of Cool Killers. Would have worked decently well with HellRaisers, especially with Legion Commander with Scarth Mage. There's some nice synergies there, but more than anything, these are just standard bans. Hightender and Faceless Void also kind of fit the bill. Definitely can understand taking out those big ultimates to set up for that Witch Doctor Death Ward. As for CCK, they're going to pick themselves up a Slark. Not the most standard of heroes to be picking up here, and they already have a decent amount of lockdown to keep the Slark in place. And a decent amount of nuke damage. I'm not sure if there's anything on the enemy team that's really begging the Slark pick, and now with the Doom, I'm not really a fan, to be honest, of CCK's choice to pick up the Slark here. It just doesn't seem to be, I don't know, meshing well enough with their heroes to make up for the fact that on the enemy team, they're very well equipped to combat up against the Slark. Okay, so unfortunately, I'm going to have to just go AFK for a second. I'm really having some throat troubles. You probably can't hear it yet, but I'm going to go quickly and leave. So sorry about this. It should only be a second. Lich is going to pick up for CCK. Oh my goodness.
Ten seconds to go. 5 seconds. Reserve time.
Templar Assassin.
Dyer's ban.
I apologize greatly for that. It's out of character, and quite honestly, that's terrible production value,
10
but
seconds to go.
my goodness, I just needed a drink. It's going to be a Templar Assassin pickup for HellRaisers. Again, it's going to be another hero for HR that's going to thrive, since the low HP pools on CCK are going to struggle when it comes to a blinking TA. And in the laning phase, yeah, the puck's just not going to have a good time if that is our mid matchup. It might be CCK attempting to put the Slark mid. Oh my goodness, let me just catch my breath. God, I'm so sorry. That's terrible of me. Yeah, but the Slark would do a lot better mid up against the Templar Assassin, being able to eat through those refraction charges. Having a decent amount of damage as well, and compared to the puck, I think it would be a better matchup for CCK. Whoa, okay, so it looks like, yeah, we're all good. My goodness, solo casting just gives me a heart attack. As far as these next bans, I think CCK are kind of on the back foot here. They don't really have a great plan to deal with HellRaiser's lineup. Their lanes, they're looking pretty solid in a vacuum. The Lich, I'm still not a big fan of the hero, especially in this situation, although the Ice Armor is going to get a lot of traction, especially up against the Templar Assassin. The physical damage coming out from the TA is going to be pretty huge, but even with that Ice Armor, there's still plenty of tools that HellRaisers have to burst down the heroes coming out from CCK. The Witch Doctor, Puck, Slark
Dyer's pig.
are all going to be controlled fairly effectively by the Ogre as well as the Scarth Mage, not to mention the Doom. It is... Okay, so let me just check out... Yeah. My goodness, there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes that you can't actually see. There's a lot of issues, so sorry about this.
10 seconds.
Yeah,
to
right
go.
now for CCK, I think what they need is going to be a solid solo laner. If they really want to play this greedy, they could throw the Slark mid, have the puck in the off lane, as well as pick up a different safe laner, but honestly, I don't think that's going to be their choice.
Seconds.
It's going to be a Timbersaw for them. I'm still not on board with this. CCK are very reliant on their mobility spells to keep themselves safe. The Timber Chain, the Pounce, the Jaunt away from the puck, and right now, HellRaisers, they're well equipped to deal with this. They have a lot of lockdown. The Doom is going to be incredibly good at taking pretty much the entire hero out of the fight. Sometimes you have that safe laner that can always auto-attack during the Doom and can still contribute something, but in this game, that's just not going to be the
10
case right
seconds
now.
to go. 5 seconds.
Okay. It's just not going to happen, especially if at any point in the game there's a refresher on this Doom. Even if Lincoln Spheres come out for the Slark Puck, there's still plenty of ways for HellRaisers to deal with it, and now HellRaisers are going to pick themselves up a Weaver of their own. Right now, they just don't have a way of locking down. Honestly, Slark needs to consider going for something like an Orchid, and unless you're snowballing, that item just won't cut the cake. I think that CCK, their lineup is just not as well equipped as HellRaisers. It seems that HR just have a more well-rounded and, quite frankly, better lineup. That said, there's always that chance that Slark and Timbersaw can get off to a really snowbally start, but that's going to rely very heavily on them outplaying the enemy side, so we'll just have to see if they're going to be able to accomplish that. Coalition of Cool Killers, they need to make sure that all these lanes work well, and they have a Lich, which should secure them one lane win, presumably up against an off-lane Doom, which is going to be nice, getting that one hero's farm. But then there's solo laners. I just envision them struggling. Timbersaw has to be very scared up against an Ogre Magi, Skyrath, as well as Weaver lane that can easily lock him down and kill him, especially if they interrupt the Timber Chain with the Fire Blast. So, as far as the draft is concerned, I think HellRaisers have it pretty much in the bag, but the game is going to be very reliant on individual play. For now, it's going to be on the Radiant side, HellRaisers with Afo Ninja. On the Templar Assassin, Dread on the Ogre Magi, Artis on the Weaver, Goddamn on the Skyrath Mage, and Gorik on the Doom. On the Dire, we're going to see CCK with Baguette playing on the Slark, Flowhex playing on the Timbersaw, K3K on the Puck, Villic on the Lich, and Suki on the Witch Doctor. Right now, CCK, they're going to be very heavily reliant on getting a Blink Dagger, presumably on the Puck at the very least, and on the Slark, just to make sure that they have a way to get some of those pickoffs. If they're able to combo all of their spells into one target, they can accomplish quite a bit inside the team fight, but then again, on a 5-5 engagement, it just seems that they're going to be controlled up, so they need to be looking for those pickoffs, and their supporting duo can't really rotate very much. I fear very heavily for CCK in this game. Yeah, it seems that their plan is, I don't know, either not clear to me or just doesn't seem to work on paper right now. If they do get those Blink Daggers faster than HellRaisers and are able to maintain that pressure early on, if you have a Weaver that doesn't get any farmers, forced into going into 2 defensive items early on, he's not going to be that impactful during the fight. So taking the Weaver out is going to be very reliant on, I don't know, putting up some early pressure, and it looks like CCK, they're going to make their way down towards the bottom lane with the Witch Doctor Lich as well as Puck, leaving the Slark and Timbersaw as their solo laners. I'm actually quite a fan of going for this laning choice coming out from them. Slark versus the Templar Assassin is a decent matchup for Slark. It's not the best, both of them can trade hits fairly effectively, but at least he has a method to get through that refraction charge coming out from the TA and at least do damage to her. Timbersaw, however, he's going to be facing up an aggressive tri-lane coming out from HellRaisers as well, anticipating the aggressive lane coming out from CCK, or at the very least, wanting to make use of these 2 supports that can roam very aggressively on. If they kill off the Timbersaw once, Goddamn as well as Dread can very easily roam to some other lanes and help out the Templar Assassin and tip the scales into her favor, even though in a 1v1 matchup, TA can probably trade even, and might even lose up against the Slark. If you have some kills going her way, that's going to be a completely different story. Some extra damage, an earlier bottle, or anything of the sorts could, I don't know, just completely make it to where HellRaisers win all of their lanes. Bottom, this Doom's not going to have a grand time at all. Up against the Puck 1v1, it's not a great situation for Doom anyway, and especially if there's some support coming out from the Witch Doctor and the Lich. For now, it's unclear where Witch Doctor's actually going to land up. It's expected down to the bottom lane, but they might have to help out their Timbersaw as well up towards top.
And they're off.
Early runes going to spawn bottom. Hatred picked by Gorik and wants to make use of it to put a little bit of damage into Suki. Probably can't get this kill under the tier 1 tower, but he's going to get 2 swipes in before going back down towards his lane. Currently, the Ogre Magi, Skyrath making their way towards mid. Boots first on the Ogre Magi. Hasn't skilled anything up, but definitely have some killing potential if they're able to find it. They're going to place a deep ward, or think about placing a deep ward, on the side of CCK's map, but first they're going to set their sights in mid. Lich sitting here in the dual lane for CCK is going to definitely make sure that Afro Ninja has a very difficult time. Leap away from Slark is going to keep himself safe, and Lich, a generally fast hero, is going to be able to meander his way out of there as well, even with Boots first on Dread. Weaver's being left alone, currently up against the Timber Saw, and that's perfectly acceptable, but for now, Goddamn and Dread are wasting a little bit of time. They need to find some way to make themselves known on the map, and that way is not by pulling, but by getting kills up in the top lane, which they're going to look to do. Down in bottom, Gorek's not having a grand time either. Even with Boots first and that Unholy Aura to help sustain, he's dealing up against a double-ranged lane, which just isn't very happy, especially for the Doombringer. Although, he'll always be able to get a little bit of income coming out from that Devourer, and he's CSing well, at least for the first 2 waves of this game. Skyrath Maging Ogre still haven't found an opening anywhere on the map, and Goddam's just kind of sitting here. It looks like he dropped an Arcane Orb or two, into the Timber Saw, and after that he's going to be running some pulling operations for the Radiant side. Ogre is going to make his way down towards bottom, but as of yet has only seen 1 creep's worth of experience this entire game. Dread not really accomplishing much, and now since it's available to him, might be able to make use of his pull camp as well. So HellRaisers, despite having some aggressive potential in their supports, are going to play this fairly passively. He's going to do it a single pull first, and he does have the pull through available. He misses one of the creeps, but that's perfectly acceptable. Doom won't mind too much, and still will get the lane at a decent equilibrium for himself. In the status quo, Templar Assassin not having a very good time, bottom Doom not having a good time. It's overall working decently well for, CCK, but once those Blink Daggers come out for the Doom Templar Assassin, it's going to be pretty hard for them, and Weaver eventually is going to be a threat to deal with. That time isn't now, and Artis might decide to go for a very passive build, but eventually he's going to be very problematic for CCK to deal with. This early game is going to be going actually better for the Doom down in bottom now that he has some support coming out from the Ogre Magi. He is CSing well and has continued to do so. I don't know, Gorek's not being shut down. I think most of these lanes are more or less a wash. Yeah, TP in mid. Coming out from the Templar Assassin, she was forced all the way back to base, just from the harass that she was taking from this Lich and Slark lane. I don't expect First Blood to happen here down in bottom, but then again, John Ford by the puck. He's in a bit of trouble now, eating the blast coming out from Gork, and a right-click from Dread. It's going to secure the deal onto the puck. Generally a fairly elusive hero, using that Illusory Orb aggressively is going to cost him his life. Not a very happy situation for the puck to be in, and now Templar Assassin in mid dropping incredibly low, but those defensive refraction charges, as well as presumably a stick, are going to save her, but still Afro Ninja not having a good time at all. CCK still are letting loose on what could have been a good early game for them. Their mid laner is doing well, but he's been babysat mostly for Lich, and it's kind of expected that in a 2v1 lane you are going to lose, and definitely not get as much as you'd like to out of it. And Slark, although he's forcing the Templar Assassin out of lane, isn't CSing incredibly well, just boots bottle towards his name, which isn't bad by any means, but I don't know, you'd like to have more, and Slark, it's going to delay his Blink Dagger up towards top. We're going to see Flux get aggressed upon by the Weaver, just a Gemini attack and a Shikuchi towards him in order to get that extra damage. Skyrath Mage is close. He only has, or he does have his silence. It's going to silence mid Timber Chain, but it missed anyway. No Flowix. It's going to be the second kill going towards HellRaisers. Isolated in these side lanes, these little skirmishes are benefiting them fairly heavily as they continuously find just that little bit of lead, and those missteps coming out from CCK, both of them relying very heavily on their escape tools that they're getting denied away from them. The puck, because he made a poor choice and ends up trying to go aggressively onto the Doom and the Timber Saw because he's too far away from the cheese and because the silence comes out from the Skyrath Mage. It just seems that CCK are, I don't know, getting outplayed a little bit by these supports, especially coming out from HellRaisers and just in the individual lanes. Doom should not be doing this well up against a solo puck, or at least for the most part, a dual lane versus dual lane. Right now, it's 20-1 on the Doom compared to 13-4 on the puck, and now Skyrath Mage going to kill the Timber Saw again. I didn't expect him to do the same, but in the end, that Arcane Bolt going to chase him down. It's just too much damage coming out from the Skyrath. Now down in bottom, Puck's eating a little bit of harass as well, and although there's not any huge rotations, now we're going to see Suki and Vilok meeting up in the mid lane, but what can they accomplish? Templar Assassin's playing defensively enough, reserving herself to jungling over at the medium camp. which is probably the best that HeflaTV can do. She's conceding the lane up against the Slark, but when they're committing this much to win the mid lane, it's better just to not die and get as much as you can out of the map, which Templar Assassin's doing pretty darn well. There's not really an opening for the TA to find any kills unless there's a rune that she picks up, and Suki is going to make his way up towards top. Helping out this Timbersaw is kind of mandatory, and I like this rotation coming out from CCK, but then again, what can he do in any of these lanes? This supporting duo just can't accomplish much. He's going to be forced to pop his Voodoo Restoration, silenced up Timber Chain across, doesn't do any damage to Artis, and it looks like Suki's might fall. Concussive Shot, however, or Paralyzing Cast, excuse me, going to land into Goddamn, getting a couple of lucky bounces, and Timber Chain, low range, going to drop Goddamn very low. Artis also falling, but he has the Shikuchi as well as the Gemini attack, silence on the Flox, can't get anything off, and Artis is going to be safe for now. It looks like we're heading in towards Midas for Artis, but without any salves, they're going to be forced to just Clarity and Tango up in order to sustain in this lane. For now, Flox is going to be able to get some farm and some experience, which is much needed, especially after dying twice. Down in bottom, Fire Blast onto CCK, or K3K, my goodness. They do have a double damage rune on Gorik, but only level 5, unfortunately enough for him. It's going to be the Skywrath Mage up top that falls. Lich rotating in the Witch Doctor. Finding out the Skywrath Mage, I expected him to back, but he just plays a little too aggressively up top and ends up falling. Yeah, right now, HellRaisers, they are ahead, but they need to make sure that they don't leak any more heroes. If they do start losing the supports 1v1 or end up dropping a carry hero there, they could lose this lead, and it's still not looking terrible for CCK, but I mean, really the only lane that's working out for them is that Slark in the mid, and this Midas on the Weaver is coming out at a nice timing, especially after going for the Basilius. 7 minutes is about where you want to be having it. And he's also been involved in 2 kills. Can't really ask for much more coming out from this Weaver. It's going to help him in the laning stage, giving him a little bit of extra attack speed, and more importantly, just making sure that he's a ticking time bomb. Weaver isn't incredibly scary until he gets those 2 items up, unless we see some sort of like Tread's Maelstrom build, which I'm actually fairly partial to. In this game, it might be his choice. But right now, he's just able to bully out Flawix out of this lane. Shikuchi and chasing him through the trees. He really wants him. Drops a bug onto him. The Timber Chain drops very short range. And the silence, he's going to die just as Shikuchi damage, if nothing else. And now will escape. That's the 3rd death of this Timbersaw in mid. We're going to see AfroNinja constantly be taking some harass, jumping from, excuse me, the Slark, using his Dark Pack. AfroNinja is going to save his Refraction for now. He's going to be able to pop it, well timed by AfroNinja. Now he's going to be able to turn a little bit into Baguette. He needs to be careful, but bottling up, he's not taking any damage. He probably won't get a kill, but the Skywrath Mage help. He sure as hell will. Now might find Villik. Tempo Assassin stuck around a little too long. That last Frost Blast from the Lich is going to do him in. A slight overextension from the Templar Assassin, but still, getting that Slark kill is incredibly important for the Templar Assassin, especially when you look at the net worth chart. Currently, TA almost tied up with the Slark that's pretty much had a free time in lane, which is admirable for AfroNinja. So, I mean, even just a 1-for-1 trade is fine, and then they clean up the support after the fact. I don't think TA had to die there. But just unfortunately, those refraction charges wearing off. Now with the Soul Ring on Dread, they have pretty much all of the mana in the world to keep aggressing upon the enemy team. And they have level 6 on Dread. Maybe getting that extra experience was worth it for them. Even though the TA dies, you now have to deal with the multicast. And he's just going to be such a thorn in the side of the enemy. Doom is available and getting gone on him bottom. He's going to need Dream Coil, Paralyzing Cask, as well as the Chakram Whirling Death. That is the strength of the Timbersaw. Those strength heroes definitely aren't that strong when you're dealing with so much damage. But now with a multicast on Suki, he's going to be forced to Voodoo Restoration just to survive. Lucky enough for him, there's no backup coming through the river, but that Witch Doctor is going to be forced all the way back to base. It's a pure Aghanim Scepter rush coming out from this Witch Doctor, so his damage is going to be pretty significant if they're able to get that lockdown, but for now, it's still looking pretty grim. Hand of Midas now running for HellRaisers. Despite not having an immediate impact, these 2 Midases aren't affecting their performance at all in this game, or their ability to fight, even though they are down some spells. It's a Mystic Flare up top with the Ancient Seal, and Puck didn't stand a chance. TP in from Lich is able to get a Frost Blast onto Goddamn, but that's about it, and he needs to be careful, quite frankly, as they could rotate onto him if they had more mana on the Skywrath, and even without, I mean, they probably could just dive him. Villik needs to stay exactly where he's at, and Slark and mid trading hits with AfroNinja probably can't do this very effectively and ends up taking a worse exchange. Yeah, Baguette is just not finding anything in this game that's going to be any tangible lead as Power Trades bottle, and that's about it. Glyph coming up top for the tier 1 tower on the Dire side is being pushed in by the Weaver, and was being pushed in by the Skywrath Mage. Some D-warding action coming out from Goddamn. He needs to be careful, however. Slark is collapsing onto him from the right. and now he'll be able to go and take out that ward from the enemy team. He does have the sentry, and he won't miss uphill, so he'll be safe in doing so. Timbersaw in mid, looking to make a jump onto the Templar Assassin. There's unfortunately no trees in the river. Ultimate pop by Baguette to try to get that extra distance. Pounce, however, doesn't latch for him, and now the Meld Strike. He's going to turn a little bit. We're going to see a multicast on the Ignite, however. The Fire Blast only lands once on the Suki. Pounce lands into Dread. He's going to be Whirling Death as well as Timber Chain down, locked in place for a greater portion of 3 seconds. The silence onto the Slark is going to mean that he's gone upon Doom onto Flawx. They're now going to be able to clean up 3 of these kills. The Witch Doctor dying on the sidelines previously, and Flawx is going to die to Goddamn. It's going to be a double kill for the Templar Assassin, an extra kill for Goddamn. CCK, they're just getting controlled so well, and I expect that to remain the case throughout the rest of the game. When they try to fight into this enemy team, they have a lot of damage between them, but their positioning tools and their lockdown just isn't up to snuff. And right now CCK, they need to do something drastic. Maybe they'll find Artis up top, but he's the one finding them as he dives the tier 2 tower, cleanly gets away with the Lich kill. Does not have a time warp, or time lapse, excuse me, for 4 seconds, but he is going to be able to pop that Dream Coil, and there's no detection coming out from Suki, but with the silence coming out from the puck, it's just not long enough duration. He'll be able to get the time lapse in Shikuchi up towards the north. Artis probably going to be able to make a clean escape here, as he doesn't have another Shikuchi. There's an Illusory Orb chasing him. Artis is going to be able to avoid that. John to the Illusory Orb coming out from K3K, just can't catch this little bug, and Artis is going to be able to escape. Power Treads, Aquila, as well as that Midas. Even at this point, just doing too much damage, going to be jungling up within inches of his life. Needs to be pretty damn careful, as he's being pinged out by the Witch Doctor. Artis, he's going to be able to invis away. No dust or detection of any sort onto this Witch Doctor, and Artis makes a clean escape, although only just. Will Tread Sword to get that last Sakuchi, getting back to base that much faster. But for now, it just seems that HellRaisers are on the right path. For taking this game, they don't have...
Mine! Selfish.
Okay, so I'm potentially not getting the cast. Okay, so hopefully everything's working out in mid. Fire Blast thrown in the way of Baguette. He is slowed down as well. We'll purge that off, as well as eat through the refraction charges. We'll pounce towards Goddamn, but the Mystic Flare, too much damage for Baguette, and Goddamn's going to survive, but only just as he is going to be cleaned up by the creeps. Doomed to Flawx. They are going to be able to clean up this Timber Saw, as well as the Templar Assassin just diving like a boss on the Lich, as well as the Slark. We'll watch Flawx as he burns down in hell, as well as that Doom. Now the Witch Doctor joins the fray, only to be dropped again by Afronins. It's going to be a 4-for-1 trade, as the Skarath Mage is the only casualty for HellRaisers. There's just nothing that they can do on top of this. Hopefully I'm not muted on stream. Somebody was talking about in the chat that there wasn't any cast. Hopefully that was just the time during the draft where I had to deal with things behind the scenes. This is, as I said, like very short notice cast for me, just minutes before the games actually start. Tier 1 tower mid is also going to fall towards HellRaisers, and despite not having a very push-oriented lineup in a team that doesn't take towers very quickly, when you kill 4 of the enemy team, you're gonna take towers whether or not. So in that sense, I suppose the best pushing lineup is the one that can absolutely dominate, and right now HellRaisers, they're finding that opening for themselves. Midas also on the Templar Assassin. Even if they start losing fights, they're going to be able to come back into this. They're going to get a tier 1 tower down in bottom. Even if you subtract that 2,000 net worth from the Midas off of the top 3 coming out from HellRaisers, is still as good as their counterparts on the enemy side. Dreamcoil mid, going to catch out 2 Afronins, dropping in a heartbeat. Doesn't get that refraction off, is silenced up, and now Dread running away. The Death Ward being channeled, doing a lot of damage towards this Ogre Magi. Got him, going to be slowed down by the Timber Saw. Drops his Mystic Flare over on the back end, just needs a little bit more damage. We'll be able to find it. The auto attack will do him in, and now Gork's joining the fray. It's a fairly sketchy engagement as Artis is able to clean up the Lich, and now joins the rest of his teammates. Flawx as well as Suki are going to be chopped down by the Doom, as well as caught out by those little bugs, and with that last Gemini attack, it's going to be enough to kill off the Witch Doctor. Flawx now behind his own tier 2 tower is going to be trying to make his way back, and he will, as HellRaisers are going to exert a little bit of caution and not dive relentlessly past those tier 2s. It's going to benefit CCK despite being an even trade on paper. Since they are behind, every even trade is a good one for them. Going to be a net worth swing of about 2,000 in their favor, mostly benefiting that of the puck. And that 12,000 gold is 12,000 gold that secures them the Blink Dagger, which is quite honestly one of the more important items that they can get for themselves, just to make sure that they're able to find initiations that are clean. My goodness, what a terrible time for everything to drop. It's going to be a Doom onto the Slark, and now Gemini attacks thrown into him as well. He's probably going to follow that Mystic Flare onto 2. Even though it's split damage, it's still enough. Artit's able to get off the time lapse at the last moment, now with an Arcane Bolt. And Stick Charge is not going to save Villic. If nothing else, it's going to be the level death to kill him off. The Whirling Death doing a lot of damage to the Doom, but Flawwax, they just need to be so careful. Diving inside the tower, Gorik is still alive, even though the Timber Chain comes through. Concussive Shot got him, trying to do as much as he can towards this Timber Sun. Needs an Arcane Bolt auto attack, it's going to be enough. And now, goddamn, inside the enemy base, it's a 5-man wipe, and HellRaisers, they've completely stomped CCK. Don't think there's anything else to say here. It's good game well played in game 1, lasting only 15 minutes for HellRaisers. I don't blame CCK for tapping out of that one. I think they needed to change their draft, if nothing else. And hopefully in game number 2 they'll have a chance of coming back, but I think that this is just HellRaisers showing that they're the higher caliber team, and CCK, hopefully they'll be able to come back. I believe they were a team that came through from the qualifiers, and HellRaisers being one of the invited teams. So we'll just have to see. I've been Grandis V here on HeflaTV Hitbox 2. Hopefully you enjoyed the cast, and if you did, you can follow us on HeflaTV at our social media websites, and we'll have game number 2 coming up shortly, so don't go anywhere. See you soon.